The consumer goods and retail industry is emerging from a watershed year in 2020. Over 2/3 of the growth in retail that came last year came from online alone. And yet, at the same time, brick and mortar experienced explosive numbers as well. So we're coming off a period of extreme change. And yet, coming into 2021 now, we're at a time of reckoning. For some channels, well, it's going to be a time of recovery, like apparel and C-store, which are going to need to find their footing again. And then for other channels, those that had a lot of success, like supermarkets that were up 8%, or online that was up about 37% and actually accounted for about 90% of the growth in retail last year. This is going to be a time to find out just how sticky those changes were. The first area of focus for our industry coming out of COVID is this notion of how merchandising is going to be reimagined, reinvented. And the way that Westrock is thinking about this is based upon the fundamental change that happened over the course of the past year or so. Brick and mortar retailing, straight brick and mortar from the retailers that we've been covering for so many years, we know that brick and mortar grew about 13% last year, which is an enormous number relative to what the growth rate had been prior to that. And so what we're seeing within a brick and mortar merchandising environment is actually 3 new tiers of merchandising. And we think retailers are going to be placing bets on how they're going to distribute the merchandising within their particular retailers, how they're going to distribute it across 3 levels. One, more functional merchandising. More, how do we get the product in place and how do we ensure that there's sufficient stock? We think that's one level. And where we think most of the action is going to move to, though, is much more around what we're calling functional delight, which is another way of saying solutions. How are you going to help shoppers solve problems? How are you going to help them meet meal occasion needs or seasonal needs or really just home improvement kinds of requirements? How can stores help to solve a problem and delight you simply by helping you to solve that problem? And then all the way at the top, we believe that there's going to be a lot of attention paid around delighting the shopper, engaging the shopper. And it doesn't necessarily mean balloons and retailtainment and that sort of thing. But how do I truly engage the shopper and give her a reason to come to the store? And then the second area of focus for our industry is around e-commerce. E-commerce is expected to account for 2/3 of all retail growth in the next 5 years. 2/3. And about 2/3 of that number is expected to be fulfilled from stores. That's the big thing we realized last year. We realized just how important brick and mortar is to e-commerce. The growth of e-fulfillment, whether we think about that as buy online, pick up in store, or ship from store, or lockers, or the massive growth that we're starting to see now in investments around automation, around micro-fulfillment centers, and how to take cost out of this system. This is going to be the real focus going forward in the next several years. How do we optimize e-fulfillment options? And ultimately, how do we make the store a new center for e-commerce? And then finally, sustainability. You know, with all the attention being paid to COVID over the past year or so, you might be surprised to know that actually key measures of sustainability are actually more important to consumers post-COVID, according to the Pulse Packaging Survey that Westrock has just recently surveyed. Even more important. Now, it's just that COVID was so radically important to consumers that maybe we weren't paying as much attention to sustainability. But the shopper certainly is paying a lot more attention to it today than she was in the past. And I guess you really can't blame the shopper when you think about how many more boxes are showing up on front doorsteps, from pizza boxes to delivery boxes. The shopper is just a lot more attuned to the need for recycling and the use of sustainable fibers in packaging. They're just a lot more aware of that and how important it is for them to be a responsible steward. So as we look forward, we recognize that Westrock has emerged stronger from this COVID experience. We've emerged in a position now where we can help you to cultivate better relationships with your customers and how you can better leverage packaging and merchandising and e-commerce toward a stronger 2021 and beyond. Thank you.